This is Dave at AFX Title and TitleSearch.com. We get some questions from clients sometimes about what is the effect of an IRS tax lien on a property and how it affects the property. First of all, like anything else, some interpretations of documents require a legal interpretation or legal conclusion by an attorney. But let's talk about, just from a title standpoint, separately, what an IRS tax lien is and what it looks like. First thing you'll notice on an IRS tax lien is there is no legal description. That means that there is no specific reference to real estate on an IRS tax lien. In many ways, an IRS tax lien is more like a judgment than a lien. And a judgment is something against a person requesting that there is money owed from that person. In most counties, in most states, by statute, a judgment that's recorded properly in the land records or civil court records automatically attaches to any property in that county owned by that person by statute. Now, there are exceptions to that. There are legal interpretations of that. There are a lot of variations. But in most cases, if you have a notice of federal lien against a person in a county, and they own property in that county, whether they bought it before the lien, after the lien, during the lien, it's going to be a claim that the federal government will make against that property. So what makes it more complicated is the notice of federal tax lien. Not only will it have limited connection to that property, it's not going to have a legal description. It may not even have the address of that property as a mailing address. It may also not have too much identification of the actual debtor. It may have a name. Well, if the name is Joe Smith, there may be more than one person named Joe Smith in that county. So it might be required of a person looking to find out if it is the same person as the property owner to get more information, social security number, other documentation, maybe even information about the tax lien itself from the Treasury Department. A tax lien will normally have a column with an identifying number. It's typically the taxpayer's or debtor's social security number redacted, maybe with just the last four numbers. Some counties don't even allow that. It has to be completely blacked out. So an IRS tax lien is not going to have a legal description to identify the property. It is going to be potentially a claim against that property by statute. What are a couple exceptions to that? How is it different from a specific lien on a property? Well, in some cases, if there is a claim against a property or a payout on a property, for example, an insurance payout, it may be possible to pass through that tax lien by getting an agreement from the Treasury Department to do a subordination of the payout. In some cases, a lender refinancing a mortgage or doing a second mortgage might also be able to look through a federal tax lien, again getting a subordination agreement from the Treasury Department, which occasionally they will accept and allow to have happen for a refinance or a second mortgage on a property, so long as the taxpayer debtor is not benefiting financially from any of these transactions. If it's adding value to the property or just replacing a mortgage on a property, the Treasury Department may allow that to happen because it doesn't hurt their position. In fact, it may enhance their equity position. For a foreclosure investor looking at a property that's in foreclosure or has been through a foreclosure auction, and many times you'll find a tax lien, a federal tax lien, that was from a prior owner on that property. We have found many of our investor clients are able to successfully negotiate the amount of that tax lien to a lower amount by approaching the Treasury Department, tell them, look, I'm an innocent third-party investor in this property. I bought this property. I didn't rack up debt with the IRS. It's the prior owner. I want to buy this property, I want to invest in this property, but I don't want to have this whole tax lien on this piece of real estate. In the IRS, in many cases, they're not required to do this, but we've seen it happen. We'll say, look, we recognize you're an investor, you're a third party, pay us some nominal amount, we'll release the lien from this property. It doesn't mean that the debtor still doesn't owe the money. They still owe the money, but we'll take it off your investor property, They want to make sure you're not related to the taxpayer. You're not some kind of straw buyer or you want to have a third party arm's length transaction. They don't want to allow the taxpayer to get off scot-free. But foreclosure investors routinely who are in the know will be able to get rid of some of this tax debt from a property as long as they're not related to the debt at all. So keep an eye on IRS tax liens. Keep an eye on name spellings. Make sure the name is spelled correctly. One of the things that taxpayers will often do if the name is misspelled, which commonly happens, or if a company name has a typo in it, they may contest a tax lien on a property, and that might affect whether or not it remains with that particular piece of real estate. But don't let the fact that there's no legal description or no reference to a particular address throw you off the fact that it may affect that property. In this case right here, there's an address in box C. It says residence. That address might match the subject property, but even if it doesn't, even if it has a separate property address, don't let you believe that tax lien goes with a different property. If it's in that county, in that person's name, there's a very good chance it may affect that property and may affect future owners' property rights until it is released. So IRS tax liens, treasury liens, get good legal advice, look at those liens, and make sure you understand how it might affect your future interest.